Alright, so we just had Christmas in June. But with that said, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another one of our weekly My Hero Academia Season 5 discussion videos. Today we're here to talk all about episode 13, Have a Merry Christmas. But before we get into the video proper, quick reminder if you haven't done so yet, to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AnyTube know that you're here. And with that said, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about this week's episode, shall we? And of course, we have to talk about none other than the star of this week's episode, the star of this whole season, really. We gonna talk about Monoma, because of course we're gonna talk about Monoma. Did you see my boy in the OP? Did you feel his presence, even with his absence in the show? This man's still on fire. Monoma, absolute king. Chat knows it. I know it. You listening, you know it. You could have been here, by the way. We were doing this live, and chat begged me. They practically begged me to talk about Monoma because he's everybody's favorite. So we're gonna sit here and talk about Monoma. And Monoma is king, says Harrison in the chat, because it's true. Moon says chat loves JoJo, and I appreciate that. And Diaz says JoJo goes High School Musical. I'm going to stop this and actually talk about the episode now. I'm sorry, I just had to mention Monoma off the top, and I'm going to sneak him into the thumbnail of every single. I'm going to sneak him into the thumbnail of every single video going forward because I know how much you guys listening love Monoma. Did you know that we literally lost subs on the last video because I talked about Monoma being better than Deku, even though I like Deku and people legitimately took me very seriously. Anyway, Monoma is king. I'm going to put him into every thumbnail because I'm petty like that. But with that said, let's actually talk about this week's episode. So, this week's episode is legitimately a very academia-focused episode, which I said while watching that it's one of those episodes that I feel is like an episode I like, but people might find boring. I enjoyed this week's episode because I feel like it sort of harkens back to the title of the show. It is an academia for upcoming heroes. It is My Hero Academia. You know, like that's the purpose. So having Mount Lady show up, who I love, by the way, but having Mount Lady show up and actually teach the students on how to behave while being on camera, not only is this foreshadowed by the beginning of the episode, like when she actually shows up, it makes sense why she's there, but it's also just, again, reinforcing the idea that UA is a school that is meant to be teaching heroes, right? We don't ever really get to see a lot of that. Like, we see stuff here and there. Like, we spent the last arc focusing on Class 1A versus Class 1B, but it felt less like a lesson and more of just, like, an excuse to see Class 1B and Class 1A fight each other. As much as I love this show, and I do, I literally started watching this just thinking to myself, like, man, I love this show. It's so great. I love My Hero. But I do wish that they focused on the academia of it a little bit more. So it was nice to actually have Mount Lady show up and talk a little bit about what a hero is supposed to behave like while being on camera. And I find Mount Lady being the one to teach them makes sense, but also shows her growth as a character. We know Mount Lady has always been this sort of, how do I say this? This sort of vanity-focused hero is what I would say. When we first see her, she's very much focused on like making bad puns about her ass, which is fine. And by fine, I mean it's fine by me. I definitely don't mean that it's fine, although she is fine. But it's fine. It's fine for her to make those jokes, and I think you need a hero like that. And it's what eventually leads us to Stain, right? Who finds disdain, haha, with the way that heroes like Mount Lady might act. But then we see, not only do we see Mount Lady's different change in character ourselves, but we also have Mineta point out that Mount Lady actually does change. Like, she's not the same hero she was at the beginning of the show. She was much more vain back then. But now she actually seems to genuinely want to help the upcoming students, like, get better at being on camera, because if they're better at being on camera, they're able to further instill hope in the society of which they are meant to be protecting. When you're a hero, it's a lot like being a wrestler, right? And I know that's going to seem weird, but just stick with me. A wrestler, if they're great in the ring, that's awesome and everything, but if they're not good on the mic, they're not going to be very entertaining, and they're not going to instill you with a lot of hope if they're the good guy, or fear if they're the bad guy. You kind of have to have a presence on the mic. And the same thing goes with being a hero, right? Like, in a world like My Hero, you kind of have to be able to present yourself as marketable, quote unquote, but it's more like it's more like how do I put it? Like it's more that you have to be able to instill hope into the people of into like the general society, right? If you can make people believe in you, they're going to feel more safe when you're there, and it's going to give you that little added bit of boost to your hero morale. So being good on the mic makes a lot of sense, and it makes sense that Mountain Lady's able to do that since she's always been focused on the media. That's always been like her big area of expertise, right? She's a badass. We know this. She can grow big, and she's tough, but she is very focused on her visual aesthetic, I suppose we could say. There's a lot of heroes like that, right? A lot of heroes are focused on their visuals, right? Edgeshot looks like a badass because he is a badass, right? And he made his whole suit made him look like a badass. He's like this cool ass ninja. And so with Mount Lady, she's like, I'm going to use my god-given abilities and my assets, wink, to improve my standing in hero society, and she's done that. But also, she is a good hero, and I like that we actually spent time delving into that. I really like Mount Lady as a character, so it was nice to actually get time with her and see her training the young heroes, right? It's funny too because we see her training the three heroes who we're eventually going to be focusing on for the next little bit, Bakugo, Deku, and Todoroki, since they're all not really great on the mic. Todoroki's a bit better than the others, right? Todoroki's definitely aloof. He's not really aware of what he's saying. Like when she says like you could break girls' hearts just by smiling, and he's like, or you can melt girls' hearts just by smiling, or whatever Mount Lady says, and he's like, I could kill them by smiling, right? Like Todoroki's definitely he doesn't have a great sense of humor, right? So he's a lot like Ida in the sense that he's sort of like stiff, right? Like he's like the straight man in the comedy routine, right? Like he's very like straight-laced. He doesn't really understand a lot of like mannerisms that most other people do. He's not the brightest bulb in the bunch when it comes to just colloquialisms and turns of phrase and stuff like that. So Todoroki, not great on the mic, but that sort of aloofness makes him charming, right? Like Mount Lady's like, I love him, right? Because like he's charming, right? Whereas Deku freezes on the mic, which I didn't expect. Seeing Deku get so shy was a bit of a surprise, since we know that he's a bit of a chattermouth. Some might even say that Deku talks too much, but tish. But it's interesting to see him sort of clam up when being interviewed, even though there's nobody really interviewing him, and it's just Mount Lady, who he's met a number of times. So I did think it was a little funny that he just like locks up, but it does add a bit to his character that's like, oh yeah, he's meant to be sort of this shy kid, and we have kind of lost that with time, but it's nice to see it sort of resurface, right? Like it's interesting to see him sort of go back and be shy again, which we haven't seen for a while. So it was interesting, but Deku definitely needs to work on his mic skills as well. And Bakugo's biggest weak point as a hero, without a doubt, is his attitude. Now, Bakugo's my explodey son. You know this, I know this, we all know this. Bakugo is one of my favorite characters in the show. I friggin' love the guy. But his weakest point as a hero is the fact that he doesn't really seem like a hero a lot of the time. Even like when he's thinking about Best Genius, which we will get to in a bit, his friggin' name of Gang Explosion Murder, right? Like it's not exactly a heroic name. And when he's being interviewed at the beginning of the episode with Todoroki carries the interview, but Todoroki's stiff, but Bakugo's just loud and obnoxious, and they literally cut him out of the interview because he's too much, right? And so this is why Mount Lady even shows up in the first place, because she has to help these boys learn how to talk to the camera. It's a skill talking to the camera or talking on the mic. Clearly, I haven't mastered it. In fact, I'm quite shite at it. But I try, and with practice, maybe one day I'll be able to talk on the mic about as well as Bakugo can. But with that said, I do think it's also important to note that during this time we also see Deku grow a little bit with Black Whip. It's not a lot, but he does in fact grow a bit. And I did think that was interesting. The idea that Deku's big growth moment is that he can fire Black Whip out ever so slightly. It's like a little mist, and he's like, did you see that? And everyone's like, yeah, I guess. Right? Like everyone's sort of unimpressed, and I do feel bad for Deku because of that, but I do think that he manages to just be charming, right? Like there's something about Deku like learning or like harnessing a bit of Black Whip that sort of harkens back to when he was able to like just use a little bit of One For All's power before breaking his arm. You know, it sort of throws Deku back. A lot of this episode was throwing Deku back to like having to reteach himself how to be confident, or having to reteach himself how to use an ability, right? Like it's fun to see him sort of slip back into those old mindsets. But for me, the biggest star of this section of the episode was easily Mount Lady. Like I said, Mount Lady was great this episode. And whenever Mount Lady and Midnight show up, I'll admit a small part of me does become like Mineta. I love these two so much. Is it the character designs? Yes. But also it's the personality. Midnight and Mount Lady are absolutely fantastic. But I don't want to dwell too much on that. I do want to talk a little bit about the other thing that happens, and that's the hero internships, which come about because of this. Because Dika City, which I don't believe has been referenced before, sort of like saying like, oh no, North City got nuked by the androids. I'm like, oh no, not North City. Who cares, right? But they were like, Dika City was destroyed by the League of Villains. I'm like, oh no, not Dika City. Ooh. But it is, you know, nobody wants to see a city get nuked, right? Like that's not that's not good. So we open the episode by the city just crumbling, right? And the animators went to great lengths to make this thing look sick. Like the way the smoke like puffs out, it looked great. Like you could tell Bones is like, get hype, right? Like it's Bones saying like, get hype, get prepared, because this shit's gonna be wild. So the city just gets destroyed, and Shigaraki is like standing in the middle of this desolate wasteland laughing. And I'm shocked because, like, to me, Shigaraki he's tough as nails, right? And his quirk is badass. But I didn't know he could cause that much damage. Like, did he do that himself? How? Like, I don't understand how he did that. He clearly had to have had help. But you could see he's like, he's shirtless and he's laughing. He's got the white hair and he's just like giggling to himself. He's like in hysterics. And I'm like, what? Like, that's how we opened the episode, was that. And I'm thinking like, what the hell could he have possibly done to cause that amount of damage? Like, it's crazy to me. But this damage, this insane wasteland that he leaves behind is so great that the Public Safety Commission of My Hero's World panics, right? Like, the government panics because they're being shown the sheer power of the League of Villains. It's intimidating. So of course they look at their heroes, and while yes, as we talked about during the Mount Lady thing, the heroes are growing and changing, and that is in thanks to the new number one. That's in thanks to Endeavor. That's thanks to Endeavor. It's good to see, but it's not enough, right? So they panic and they request, and by request I of course mean force, UA to send the students out for internships so that they have more heroes on standby. It's risky and it's scary for the students, but they need more heroes out there. It's why they were like getting their hero licenses as quickly as they were, because they need more heroes out on the field, because the League of Villains are kind of getting out of control. And it leads to this moment where you're sort of like, how bad is it? Right? Like, we see a city get demolished. We see the Public Safety Commission freaking out and sending students out there as soon as possible just so that they have more heroes on standby. It's kind of crazy. And it sucks because, like, this leaves Deku and Bakugo in kind of a weird situation where both of them don't really have anywhere to go, right? Like, Deku can't really rely on Gran Torino right now because Gran Torino's sort of unavailable. And then Night Eye's agency can't really take him on either because I don't remember what the excuse is. I think they were just busy. And, you know, Night Eye's not around because he's gone. My sweet Night Eye. Sir Night Eye, I miss you, sir. But Night Eye's gone. So Deku doesn't really have anywhere to go. And then Bakugo also doesn't have anywhere to go because, in case you forgot, Best Jeanist kind of has a hole in his chest. He's not dead. Because I remember, like, thinking that Best Jeanist had died many moons ago when, you know, he gets a hole in his chest. But even back then, the comment section was like, nah, man, like, without spoiling too much, like, he's not dead. He's okay. So I was like, okay. And then we hear later, when we get like the new top 10 heroes, that Best Jeanist is around, but he's just not there, right? So it's like, okay, so Best Jeanist is alive at the very least, but we see Bakugo looking sort of wistfully at this image of Best Jeanist, and it still says like missing in action. So he's still missing. And it means Bakugo can't just go rely on the Best Jeanist's agency, because he ain't there. And it does lead to a great moment with Bakugo where you see Best Jeanist say like, your hero name is more like a promise you make to yourself, and I'm gonna ask you again what your hero name is at a later date. So it's like, oh, that's sweet. But it does mean that Bakugo also doesn't have anywhere to go. And this ultimately leads to Todoroki asking them to join him and his dad at Endeavor's internship, which is beginning early. The chat was cool enough to let me know that according to manga fans, and by manga fans, according to manga fans, I mean this is a fact, that this arc is happening before the villain arc, when in the manga it happens after. So that's a little weird. And I'm gonna leave the picture of Shigaraki up, I left the picture of Shigaraki up this whole time for that reason, because we're still gonna talk about this. The fact that the villain arc, which everybody's been hyping up to the moon and back, is being passed on for the Endeavor internship might seem scary, except for the fact that it's clearly not being passed on. What's happening, as far as I can tell, is that they're just switching the order. And to me, it makes a lot of sense that you would switch the order, because if you're gonna have the villains go up against the heroes, right? I need to see the heroes have grown and evolved, and I need to have them like get as much training as possible, as far as I'm concerned. So to me, it actually makes more sense to have the Endeavor internship happen now, and then have whatever the hell's going to happen in the villain arc happen there. I will admit that I already knew that the Endeavor arc was, or not the Endeavor arc, but the Endeavor internship was a thing because of the movie, right? Like, so I knew that eventually that Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki were all going to go work with Endeavor, because the movie kind of spoiled it, but that's not the movie's fault. You know, like, it is what it is. And it's not a huge spoiler or anything. So I was like, okay, I kind of already know where Deku and Bakugo are going to go. But it's cool, right? I like the idea that they're all going to train with Endeavor, and very clearly Hawks, which does make me wonder if Tokiyami is going to be there as well. I don't know. But it's interesting. But it also does sort of leave the question open of, like, what's going on with... what's going on over at Studio Bones. Like, the thing that I saw Matt, a regular in our chat, point out is that it's likely that they're just trying to focus on the villain arc and putting as much talent they can on that particular arc, and then letting like the others work on the Endeavor internship, which apparently should, unless I'm mistaken, in chat, correct me if I'm wrong, or comment section, correct me if I'm wrong, the Endeavor internship shouldn't be terribly long. Like, it's not a super long arc. So I think they're going to focus on this for now, and then get hyped for the villain arc later. And that makes sense to me. I'm not really as concerned as maybe some others are, but I'm okay. As I'm sure a lot of people are, Bones knows what they're doing. It's not Cloverworks. I love Cloverworks, but what they did with Neverland, yikes. Although that's not really Cloverworks' fault. That's very clearly a producer's fault, but whatever. I'm not worried about it. It's My Hero. It's fine. So yeah, it is what it is. It should only be about 4 episodes, according to the chat, so I'm not particularly worried. And thank you, Ghost, for letting me know. But the last thing that I want to mention in regards to this week's episode, speaking of the Twitch chat, is Aerie. The Twitch chat wanted me to let you know that Aerie is super cute and is adorable, and her mixing up the holidays was super cute, and I agree, it was insanely cute, and her wielding the Buster Sword was absolutely adorable. So it was great. Tokiyami would be proud. And Cloud would be proud. Cloud Strife would absolutely be proud of Aerie. I'm proud of Aerie. It was sweet seeing Aerie rock the Santa outfit. Santa Aerie was adorable. I love the trick or treat, and I'm like, wow, Aerie got closer to the actual holiday than the show did, because that's literally the next holiday coming up, because it's still summer. But yes, Aerie being cute was adorable. And it was, yeah, in general, this episode, admittedly, very much a transitionary episode between arcs, and it lacked the greatness that is Monoma. So, you know, every episode from here on out, any episode that doesn't have Monoma in it automatically gets an entire point docked, because how could you possibly have My Hero without Monoma at this point? He's clearly the best. So obviously this episode is a 2 out of 10, solely because of Eri, and the rest of the episode was shite. No, I'm kidding. But having Eri in it was cute. I like that we get a lot with Mount Lady. I'm very intrigued by the hero internship, and I'm very, very intrigued by what the hell's going on with Shigaraki. It's going to be an interesting couple of episodes leading up to the villain arc, and it's, I don't know, I'm very curious what's going on with that. I also like that the show keeps Eri around, because every time they bring up Eri, I'm like, we're not done with her story yet, are we? Like, every time I look at Eri, I'm like, something's gonna happen with Eri. I don't know what, and I'm nervous about it, because Eri's just like this sweet kid. I'm normally not a fan of kid characters in anime, but with Eri, it's different. Like, I'm just like, just protect the kid, right? Like, I find most kid characters in anime ungodly annoying, right? I find them, like, 9 times out of 10, they are super annoying, but Eri ain't that way, right? So Eri is like protect the kid, right? Like, just protect the kid. So yeah, I am a little nervous about the fact that they have Eri constantly there, and Mirio's there too, and that also really worries me, because it's like, okay, they're really keeping these two around, so either everything's gonna be fine and they can come back into the story as much as they want and everything's gonna be fine and dandy and they're just there to be a reference to one of the dopest arcs of all time, or something bad's gonna happen to Eri and Mirio, and I'm very nervous about that. Chat and comment section, if you tell me anything that happens to Eri and Mirio, I will literally eat you, because I am a zombie. With that said, we're gonna wrap up today's video here, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, leave a comment down below, and of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, and let all of AnyTube know that you're here. As always, I want to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Almost stumbled over my words there, but I didn't. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names, and hey, if you would like to join these beautiful people, there are 2 ways to do so. The first is by hitting that join button right beside the sub button. That gets you a badge next to your name, some emotes to spam in the comments, and of course your name scrolling past the screen here. Or you can check out that Patreon link in the description. For just a single $1, you can get your name scrolling past the screen. Either way, it is super appreciated. So once again, a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron, and that is it for me. You guys could have been here live. We record these live now, so if you want to hang out with us when we record these videos, that'd be cool. We're trying to get Twitch partner, hopefully one day. But yeah, come hang out with us live over on Twitch. Enjoy the videos as they come out. Sorry, this season has been kind of lacking. I've only really been covering My Hero and Fruba, and I apologize for that, but I will be back in full force next season, so that's a thing. Okay, bye!